Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in today's video we are going to discuss about Azure private container registries with self-hosted Azure VM agent. Why we have chosen here self-hosted Azure agent? Because our container registries will be private and there will not be any public endpoint. So we cannot connect to the Azure hosted agent. That's why we are using here self-hosted agent. So let's understand this particular architecture here. So if you see these blue dotted line, these are the virtual, this is the virtual network which I'm going to use for my self-hosted agent, which I'm going to create on this particular virtual network. So I have named it agent-vnet. So like all the build agent will be deployed on this particular virtual network. And the another virtual network here we have a ACR vnet where we are going to create our Azure Container Registry. And now this particular virtual network is separate and this particular virtual network is separate. So whatever the resources we will create in agent vnet and ACR vnet, they cannot communicate with each other because they don't have any connectivity between them. So to communicate between two virtual network, we create a peering. So here what I am doing, I am creating a virtual network peering. So the resources on this particular virtual network on this particular virtual network can communicate with each other. So now in this ACR VNet, I am going to create a private Azure Container Registry. So that there is an important point where whenever you are going to create a private Azure Container Registry, you have to use premium pricing plan. Otherwise you can't create a private Azure Container Registry with basic or standard pricing plan. So you have to use premium as well, premium pricing plan. Next thing I'm trying to do here. So whenever you create a private ACR, in the networking section, as soon as you choose a private registry, you have to create a private endpoint. Why we create this private endpoint? Because the resources or the another resources which are trying to connect to this private ACR, they will use this private endpoint. So and this private endpoint, whenever you create, it will automatically create a private DNS shown. So the DNS name itself, like it's basically help us to resolve the name, like IP address to name and name to IP. So this is the work of DNS. But in our case, we are going to create a private DNS shown because we are creating a private Azure Container Registries. So whatever the resources will be part of this particular virtual network, they can connect to this private DNS shown. And the next thing, you are seeing a virtual network link. So this private endpoint will be registered with private DNS shown, like records, A records and all those will be created on this particular private DNS shown. So the resources, the private Azure Container Registries can communicate with this with the help of this private DNS shown, it can communicate. But this virtual machine which we are going to use as a build agent cannot communicate to this particular virtual network. Even we have stabilized the peering, because if whenever we when we use the build agent to push our Docker image, it should have access to this private endpoint. It should resolve this private endpoint name, then only it can push our image to this private ACR. So for that, what we have to do, we have to create a virtual network link from this VNet to this private DNS shown. So there will be basically in this case two virtual network link will be created. The one will be created automatically whenever you create a private endpoint for this ACR, private ACR, and the another one you have to create manually from this virtual network to this virtual network, the virtual network link, so it can communicate the resource, the VM, the build agent can communicate with this private endpoint, so it can easily push our Docker image on this private ACR. So this is the overview architecture of this particular video or private ACR we can say. And here what I'm trying to do here, this is anyway, this is the end user which is trying to connect Azure DevOps server from internet. So anyhow we need internet connectivity to access Azure DevOps server. And from here we are creating a CI pipeline so we can build and push our Docker image on this particular Azure Virtual Machine. So we will see a lot of things in after this slide in a practical way, so it will be easy to understand. Now let me so what I have done here, basically I have created a GitHub page where I have put all the steps which I am going to follow to create this particular architecture diagram. So let's follow this GitHub page, and based on that we will create uh, this particular architecture. So the first step we have here, first create the service connection from Azure DevOps to Azure Cloud using managed identity or service principles. So anyhow you have to create a first managed identity or service principle that you can easily create from Microsoft Azure Active Directory. Now the name has been changed, it's Entra ID. From that you can create a service principle and managed identity, and the same managed identity or service principle we are going to use in this particular demonstration. So if I'll show you, if I'll go to Microsoft Entra ID, which is now, oh sorry, it was earlier name was Azure Active Directory, now it has been renamed. So if I go to app registration, so from here you can create a new service principle or managed identity, sorry, service principle you can create from here. So I have already created a service principle called AKS, which I am going to use to create a service connection in from Azure DevOps. So I have already created a service principle. You can see here the service connection, Azure service connection, which I have already created it. Now if you have to create, what simply you have to do, you have to go to new service connection. You can choose, like for example I have chosen Azure Resource Manager. Now go to next. Now here it will ask for how you want to connect using service principle manually, manage identity. So these are the ways for authentication which you can use. So for example, if I am choosing service principle, then it will, I have chosen automatic, so it will automatically try to fetch from our subscription. But let me go back. If I'll choose here a manual, then it will be easy to demonstrate. So what all the things you have to put here: subscription ID, subscription name, service principal ID, and the secret which you will create, and tenant ID. Those all the things you have to put it here, and you have to verify. Then you can easily stabilize the connection between Azure DevOps and Azure Cloud. So this part I have already done that, so let me close it. Next thing what I have to do, create the agent pool from the project setting. So next thing we have to create, because we are going to register this virtual machine as an agent pool, or as an agent inside of the pool. So for that what you have to do, you have to go to project settings, and from the pipeline, under pipeline you can see agent pools. Now let me create a new pool. So I'll name it, so there are two types as we are aware, self-hosted and Azure Virtual Machine skill sets. So let me do the self-hosted name, and I'll put the name here ACR demo, and we will grant access permission to all the pipeline. So we have ACR demo as a agent pool. Now if I go inside this particular agent pool, we don't have any agent here. So the next thing, because for agent we need to create a virtual machine first, then only we can register this virtual machine as an agent. So the next step what we have to do, we have to create a two virtual network, one for self-hosted agent and another for private ACR. So you can see in this particular diagram we have two virtual network, ACR VNet and agent VNet. So let me do that first. So I'll go to my resource group. Let me create a new resource. So I'll put the name here demo. Location I'll choose Central India because I'm in India. Next, review and create. Now next thing what we have to do, as per slide, we have to create a two virtual network. Let me move that tab. So I'll go to virtual network. I don't have any virtual network, so I'll create a two virtual network first. I'll put here name ACR VNet. Security, I leave everything as a default. You can use Azure Bastion as well, so your VM should not need a public IP address. But for this particular demonstration, I'm going to leave everything default. Next, go to IP address. So I'll just rename I'll put it here something 11 something, and the subnet name I'll change it here, so it will be easy to identify. ACR subnet, and rest all the things I'll leave default. Now let's review and create. So it will take few minutes. Let's wait. Okay, deployment succeeded. We got the notification here. So let me go back and create another VNet. Okay, still it's in progress. Okay, we got it. Next, another VNet we create called Agent VNet, where we are going to host our virtual machine. So I'll name it at Agent VM. Okay. Next, again, I'll rename the IP. So I'll put it here 12, and subnet name I will also change, just for the identification purpose. Agent subnet, and let me do review and create. So next step, what we have created a two virtual network. Next, we need to create a peering between these two virtual networks so they can communicate with each other. Okay, so this is also completed. Let me do any one of the virtual network. Okay, sorry. So okay, we got it. So now we'll create a peering. So peering, you can see on the settings tab there is an option called peering. So as of now we don't have any peering, so let me add it. So this peering will be from ACR VNet to, okay, the name must begin with letter or number. ACR VNet to open agent VNet. Okay, so something, okay, okay, so it's not taking space basically, so I'll put hyphen. Okay, it's taken. Remote virtual network, so this name I'll keep it as a agent VNet to ACR VNet. Now here I have to choose the virtual network from I want to pair it. So in our case we have only two virtual networks, so we can easily remember. But in production or big infra we have a lot of virtual networks, so I'll choose here agent VNet and I'll add it. So the pairing status is updating. Let me refresh it. Now it's connected. Now you can see here this agent VM is the peer of ACR VNet. If I'll go back to agent VM, let me refresh it. Now this agent VM virtual network is paired with ACR VNet. So now the resources between like between these two virtual networks can communicate with each other. So the virtual network part is also completed. Now let me go back to GitHub page. So now you can see pairing is completed. Now what we will do, we will create a agent like virtual machine where which we want to use as a build agent. So let me go to virtual machine. These all the things we can easily do with the help of Terraform as well, so there is no need to create a manually. I'll choose my resource group, virtual name I'll put it as a test VM. Next I'll choose availability zone because we don't want. Okay, so for authentication to this virtual machine we are going to use SSH public key. So I'll put username as my name, and SSH port we are going to enable. Next, disk. So I'll leave everything default here. In networking section we will choose the agent VM because we want to deploy our virtual machine on this agent VM, and rest all the things I leave it default. Management. Okay, so I'm not going to use anything here, so just review and create. So this is going to take couple of minutes. Now we need this SSH key, so it's always you have to download this private key and keep it secure, because from this key itself you are going to connect to the virtual machine which we are creating here. So I have downloaded it here. Meantime it's creating, let me copy the SSH key on the location. So I'll copy it and I'll go to C drive, users, my name. Here we should see .ssh folder. If not, we can create it. So I don't have any keys here, so I'll put it here, the key. So okay, deployment is succeeded. It's too fast. Okay, so we got the VM. Now next thing what we have to do here, now we need to connect to the virtual machine. So let me open my command prompt as an administrator. Okay, now I'll just copy the name of our key and let me open the notepad as well. Okay, so this is our private key. Now this is the command which I'm going to run. So another thing, what we need, the IP address of this particular virtual machine. So this is the public IP address because I'm trying to connect this virtual machine from my local machine. So let me change it. Okay, and the next thing we have to change the key name here. Now I'll go back to my command prompt. So you have to put by. So now let me clear the screen. Now you can see the console of virtual machine. This is the VM which we have created, test-vm, test-vm. So we already connected. Now the next thing what we have to do, we have to create a pet token for authentication. Like this agent should communicate during the registration. We need to provide the authentication method. So in our case we are going to create a pet token which I already created. Let me show you how you can create it. So let me go to project home page. So if you will go to here, user settings, and personal access token. So here you can create a new token. In my case I have already created. Let me create one more token here. So I'll keep it as a ACR, and rest authorization, the scope for access associated with that token I'm keeping for full access for now. You can customize also as per your requirement. Now you have to copy this token because this is going to use. So let me copy it in my notepad. So now we have created the pet token. Now we have to register the agent. So if I'll go back to my Azure DevOps, so ACR demo, here I'm going to add a new agent. So you can see here for Windows this is the configuration, for Mac this is the configuration, and for Linux, because we are going to we have created a Linux as a Linux VM as a agent. So these are the commands you have to run it. So let me go back to my GitHub page. I have already put it all the commands in this page. So I'm just going to run it directly. So it's going to basically create a directory called my agent, and we are going to this particular directory with the help of cd command. It's created. Now you can see we are in a my agent directory. The next thing, we need to download the agent on this particular virtual machine. So let me run this particular command. So you can see it's already downloaded. Now if I go to do the ls, you can see this is the agent. Now we have to unzip this particular file. So let me run this particular command. This is used for extracting the files. Now we need to, if you want to see the directory structure, we can simply check ls-al, sorry, ls- these are the directories. Now we have to configure this agent. So we are going to run this config.sh file. So okay, let me make it little big. So first thing we have to do here, we have to accept the license. So I'll put it yes. Now we need to enter here the server URL, the organization URL. So in my case I have the URL called something this. So let me go back and run it. Now it's asking for the pet token, which we have already created. So I'm just copying my pet token here. Okay, the first thing you have to press enter for pet. If you want to authenticate the pet, you have to press enter. Then you have to put your pet token. So it can, this particular agent will authenticate to Azure DevOps server. Now we have to put here enter agent pool. The pool we have created here. So in our case, this pool name is ACR demo. So let me go back. Okay, it took default because no issues. So if I successfully edit the agent, enter the work folder, let me do yes. Okay, now what happened here, this particular ACR-demo agent is created under this default pool. If I go back, because somehow let me refresh this page. So this was the ACR-demo, and we don't have any agent. What if I'll go back to my agent pool, and under default, under this particular, it's created the agent ACR demo. It's fine. So this particular agent is offline for time being because it's not started. So we have covered till here. Now we need to configure this agent to run as a service. So this is the command which I'm going to use. Let me go back to my command prompt. Okay, So it's created the sim link. It's okay. Let's wait for few minutes. So if I'll refresh, this will still, it will show red because offline, because it's not started yet. So we need to start it as well. So let me go back to my, now we need to run execute now to run as service. So we have configured till here, but we have not run it. So let me run this particular command. You can see status done. Now let me run it. So you can see here started listener process, started running service, scanning for tool capabilities and all. So connecting to the servers and listening for the jobs. It means now the agent status should be connected. Now let me go back here. Okay, now you can see it's online now. So we have registered this virtual machine as an agent. Now what we need to do, we are going to build the Docker image. As of now, we don't have any tool installed on this particular virtual machine, so we need to install tool. Then only we can run any kind of like Docker or Azure commands from this virtual machine. So I'm going to execute, these are the commands. Okay, let me run it. Next one. Let me clear the screen so it will be easy to read because it's going very down. Okay, now let me copy another one, sudo apt-get update, so it will update all the packages. Now we will install the Docker Community Edition here. Here basically we are going to use the user which I'm logged on this VM as in a Docker group. Whenever you are creating configuring this particular virtual machine to use as an agent, you have to always think about the disk space, how much you need it, because you are going to install a lot of build utilities. I think for this particular video I have chosen 30 GB, that should be enough because I'm not going to build any big image over here. Okay, so now let me add my user as in a Docker group. Next command is we have to provide the permission to Docker socket. So okay, it's completed. The next command, we need to install the Azure CLI because we will see we cannot access Azure Container Private Registry from this particular browser because this is my local and this is not part of the virtual network. So let me run this command as well. Meantime it's executing. Let me go back to my Azure portal, and here what I'm trying to do here now, the next step, we have to create a private container registry. So I'll go back to my container registries. Let me create a one. So I'll choose my resource group as demo, and registry name I put it as a e-ticket, and location is Central India. And pricing plan, you have to choose premium if you want to use a private container registry. So for example, if I choose standard and I'll go back to networking, you can see the private access is disabled. So you have to use a premium as a pricing plan. And next I'll go to networking. So now you can see the private access is enabled now. So now let me create a private endpoint connection. This is what we have discussed in the slide. If I'll go back to the private endpoint which we are going to create, because from this endpoint we are going to access this container registry. So I'll put here ACR -p private endpoint, and virtual network I'm going to use ACR -vnet, and the subnet will be ACR subnet. So you can see the private DNS shown. It will create the new private DNS shown, create private link.azure.cr.io something. So let me go click on OK. Next I'll go to encryption tag, review and create. So validation is succeeded. Let me create it. It will take a couple of minutes, so we will wait till then. If I'll go back to my GitHub page, meanwhile it's creating. So the next thing what we have to do, if you can see here, I have tried to access my container registry from my browser, but it can't, because looks like you don't have access to this content or firewall and virtual network enabled. So because we are not on the same virtual network where we have hosted our ACR, so we cannot access publicly. So this is going to take a couple of minutes, I think. Sometime it took 2 minutes or 3 minutes, or sometime it take a more as well. So you can see now it's create container registry is created. Now it's creating the private DNS shown. This is the ACR private endpoint is already created, and I think it should be the last part which is going to create a private DNS shown. Okay, meantime it's going to create. Let me move to my Azure DevOps pipeline, and we will see what we have to change here. So actually I have already created a pipeline. Let me explain a little bit about this CI pipeline. I'm not going to explain in depth. So this is the pipeline which is going to build our Docker image and push it on the ACR. So this is the part uh, which we are going to utilize, and this stage basically. And I'm not going to use this Sona report and all. And here basically what I was trying to do, create a ACR from Terraform, using Terraform. So in coming maybe another or next to next video, I'll use Terraform to create all the infra from this pipeline itself. But for time being, we are going to use only this particular part of our CI pipeline. So whenever I run this CI pipeline, I will select the stage as a build and push. So what are the things we have to change here? If you can see here, pool. Here we have a pool called Azure VM, but in our case we have pool. Let me open the project setting. I'll go to agent pool. We are going to use default because we have created agent under this default pool. So let me copy it and paste it here. And the another thing, you have to put here ACR name. So I have already tokenized it and I have saved in a variable tf var something is for this over this name. So this is the name of our ACR repository which we have created, e-ticket. Let me go back to, okay, it's created now. So if you see, if I go to repository now, you can see looks like you don't have access because this system which I'm using, it's not a part of virtual network. So that's why we cannot see after pushing them is that's and we will see the repo and all tags from this command line where we have connected to the virtual machine. Okay, so this is completed. Now we will run the pipeline. I'll go to my pipeline. Let me save it and I'll run it. And here on a stage, I'm going to use only build and push ACR. Select stage and run it. So the first thing is going to check out the repo. If I go to build and push, so start building our Docker image. Okay, so now you can see the build got failed. Why? Denied client IP address 20.193.243.157 is not allowed access. So if I see, if I go to my virtual machine, so this is the IP address of our virtual machine. Let me go back to my slide here. So this virtual network, this private endpoint is registered with this private DNS shown, and this there is a virtual network link from this VNet to private DNS shown. But what about this virtual network? This virtual network doesn't have access to this private DNS shown. So if I'll go back to my Azure cloud, let me go to private DNS shown. So if I'll go here and virtual network link, so you can see this there is already a link is automatically created when we configure the private endpoint from private ACR. So this is part of the ACR virtual network, but there is no agent VNet. So we have to create a private link for agent VNet as well. Let me choose my virtual network. So agent PM and okay. now you can see, okay, it's not completed yet. It's going on. Let's wait for, okay, it's completed now. Maybe still it's executing some task in background because I cannot see the status or deployment is succeeded. Okay, now it's succeeded. Now let me run my pipeline again. Let me choose the stage. Okay, it's failed again. uh, this IP is not allowed access. Okay, let's wait for a couple of minutes more because sometimes it takes time to reflect the permissions. Okay, let me try one more time, else we will wait for a couple of minutes. Okay, so it failed again. Why it failed? You can see here, authentication required. We missed one thing here. We have to add the service principal to this particular ACR because it's trying to access the ACR, but there is no authentication on this particular ACR. So let me go to IAM role. I'll add role assignment, and I'll, because we are trying to push here, so I'll choose ACR push as a role. I'll go to next, and here I will choose my service principal. So I'll search for AKS. Okay, select next, review and assign. So let's wait to complete this. Okay, role assignment is added. Let me go back to my pipeline. I'll run it new again. So build and push. Okay, somehow, okay. So now you can see the status here. It pushed, and this is the repository which is created. Let me go back here. So this is the URL of private repository etickets.azure.cr.io. If I go back to here and overview page, so this is the login server. This is the URL of our ACR private endpoint, and this is the repository which is created etickets-main. If we have to verify from browser, again we cannot access it because this machine is not part of virtual network. So let me go back to my command prompt. Let me clear it. Okay, sorry. So what we will do, I'll go to my GitHub page. Let me close it. Okay. So this is the command. The first command is we have to verify the repository name etickets-main. So I'll put it here. So now you can see login server endpoint suffix Azure CR.io is automatically omitted. So this is the repository name, and we have to see the tag. So let me go back and copy the command. So this is the tag 241. So that's how basically we use private ACR with self-hosted agent, and this is a recommended way to use as much as private resources you can use in your cloud. So it will have less access, or it will not open for public, and it will be more secure. So that's all for today. See you in next video. I'll make sure I'll put this GitHub page link in the description box, so it will be easy if anyone want to follow this particular video. Okay, so bye bye for today. Thank you so much. See you in next video.